Because it's one way of, otherwise, a fellow does not, a lot of things are happening in Freemasonry, is one of the things. Some fellow would not have shown their face at all for 25 years in this Freemasonry, suddenly you'll get a medal, long-term service jewel. Long-term, staying away from the Masonry, you'll get a jewel. But likewise, I think, sir, at least in your time, you add this one and give some marks so that for attendance, so that people will get enthused to come to our meetings and all this thing more. And more than these things, this is not the correct platform for me to talk today. And thank you so much for your patient listening. Thank you so much for the opportunity given to me. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Major Raja. It was very informative. And I would like to mention a point here when you were saying we pass on the Masonic education every time when in certain lodges, not many senior brethren also, they don't attend. So what happens, the junior brethren will have a tendency to pass over. I just want to mention this also. I'm sorry to say this, but however, I have to say this. Thank you very much. Now I invite Dr. Biswakumar. Before we have a small cake cutting session. Today being his birthday, we thought we'll have a small cake cutting session. Somebody got a match, please? You're guilty. Hold it straight. Hold the lighter straight. Okay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Joshua. Happy birthday to you. Give the first one to the regional grandmaster, sir, so that the entire region will take the cake now. On behalf of the region? Yes, I also take it now. You will do that now.
Also on behalf of the region.
On behalf of Millennium Lodge. Yeah.
On behalf of all ruling masters of all lodges of Chennai, on behalf of all brethren at Chennai, on my own behalf of Lodge Accountant 94, I have great pleasure in giving this on his 73rd birthday.
Don't tell the years. No, very bad.
No. I must acknowledge there is one person 1 year older than me. So,
not this way. Hold on. Because if you tell his age, the people find my age also now. Thank you.
Good evening, brethren. Right worship of the Region and Master and my dear brethren. I'm really touched by your kind gesture. I knew something like this would happen, but I didn't expect it. I'm sure you'll all agree with me, that was not a tendril, that was a Suravali. It was not a tsunami. The tsunamis come not exactly from the east, but from the southeast. So, Major Raja and me belong somewhere close by. I belong to the southern region, southern part of the southern India, more because I had my basic education there, the medical education there in Madurai, where Dr. Raja was also my senior. He didn't rag me, he was one of the anti-ragging people. We had a small anti-ragging group, a majority of ragging group, of which I belonged. Brethren, I am beholden to the worshipful Master and the brethren of the Millennium Lodge for according me this privilege of sharing this podium with such illustrious and knowledgeable Masons as our Deputy Grand Master, Right Worship Brother Dr. P.K. Muthukumar Swami, our beloved Region Grand Masters, Right Worship Brother Arvind Prasad Chitra and Right Worship Brother Bharat Venkatepur, who should be here any time, and of course, our Right Worship Brother Dr. John Reginald and Right Worship Brother Major Raja. I feel that I am but an insignificant star seen in the distant sky, twinkling faintly amongst the bright and shining galaxy of Masons seated here. Nevertheless, I feel honored to be asked to stand before you and share a few thoughts on Masonry. As a restless, ever inquisitive, rolling stone in Masonry for close to 4 decades, I have gathered no moss but a substantial degree of practical knowledge of what we set out to do from that night of my initiation, when I leapt out into the unknown. A night which to me, as it was for most of us, one of great mystery. The process of initiation should be quite vivid in the memory of most of us. The more dramatic the ceremony was for us, the more deeply etched are the memories of that evening. We were told very many things that evening which not many of us would remember or take serious note of. It is only when an initiate attends another ceremony of initiation that a recollection of his own initiation or the nuances and their implications are realized by him. Not many of us take serious note of the final words spoken by the worshipful Master that evening, exhorting the candidate to make a daily advancement in Masonic knowledge, of course, without neglecting the ordinary duties of one's station. That takes us directly to the very heading of today's event, MIME, a name, an acronym that could have been generated, I'm sure, only from the creative mind of one of the architects of the genesis of this lodge. An abbreviation, as you all must be aware, of for Millennium Informatorium for Masonic Education. What a wonderful terminology for reminding us of what we should be doing routinely, as taught on our day of initiation, making a daily advancement in Masonic knowledge. So this event should be taken as an annual reminder for every Mason to set out to do a task which we should be doing as a matter of routine and a dire necessity to delve into the mysteries of the craft. The word mime is defined as to imitate, communicate by gestures and facial expressions without speaking in as many words. I shall take only one aspect of this definition, that of imitating. As children, we have all been very fond of imitating the actions of someone we came across, more often in a derogatory or satirical manner. As also, we develop our own traits by imitating what we observe in our elders, particularly our parents. That is how we find certain mannerisms in many members of the same family. Often this trait goes by the name of tradition. As we grow up, we tend to look up to some people in life whom we tend to emulate, if not do hero worship. Take for instance a young cricketer wanting to become a Sachin Tendulkar, or a young tennis player wanting to become a Rafael Nadal or Roger Federer. He tends to imitate every little gesture of his hero, even the tantrums of some of the heroes like John McEnroe. So the particular person becomes a role model for the young growing up lad. This tendency continues in later life too, of course with the addition of one's own idiosyncrasies or eccentricities, either to his benefit or to his detriment. In our Masonic life too, our progress is largely determined by the bright example set by our illustrious predecessors. if one could reminisce, he would remember at least one, if not many, of his brethren, the seniors of his or other lodges, whose attitude towards commitment to the craft in general and to his own lodge in particular would have been the prime mover in his imbibing the tenets of the craft and adhering to the traditions of the lodge. I can definitely attribute some of my own performance of rituals, my conduct in the lodge, and perhaps some of my eccentricities and idiosyncrasies to my imitating some of my seniors who I had the privilege to move with in my formative years in Masonry. To name a few, giants like Brother E.N. Narayanasamy, Brother V.G. Ramamurthy, Brother Commander V.S.P. Mudaliar, Brother Dr. V.N. Chandrasekhar Rao, Brother Dr. M.S. Ekambaram, all of whom are in the Grand Lodge above, and Brother V. Rajendran, Brother R. Dwarakanath, Brother Captain P.R. Datta, and Brother M. Prabhat Kumar, who are still with us. Their contribution to the craft in this part of the country is manifest in the role played by some of the Masons whose career they have shaped in their own silent but efficient and effective way. If I have achieved anything today in Masonry, it is directly attributable to my miming or imitating the bright example that these illustrious brethren and many such more who have set for me to emulate. Although our ritual is basically the same for all the lodges under our Grand Lodge, one would find a great many variation in the performance of the same ritual in various parts of the country, particularly in the older lodges who owed their allegiance to different constitutions in their years. The variations go by the name of tradition in most lodges, some acceptable and some not so. But the older the lodge is, the stronger is the attachment to the tenets of the craft, and such lodges are the role models for the new lodges, which slowly over the years move away from the beaten path and set their own blazing trails as the Millennium Lodge has done. The credit goes not only to the senior members but also to the juniors as well, due to their cooperation within the lodge, their willingness to exhibit perfect submission to the master and his wardens while acting in the discharge of their respective duties, and above all, preserving absolute harmony, unity, and unanimity in the lodge. This last aspect, I feel strongly, is what is most essential for the growth of the craft and of the individual lodge. Brethren, as I understand it, operative Masons founded a system which would establish a strict code of conduct and ethical behavior amongst the trade of stonemasonry, as well as a system of morality and gradation amongst the workmen according to their skills. They also established very strict norms and appropriate, albeit very harsh, punishments for qualifications and lack of the same among workmen. Thus, they established such quality control in the trade not seen in the present days. The primary objective of forming a guild such as this would have been to safeguard the secrets of the trade so that it would not become known to the profane, also to establish and cement a bond that would keep the tradesmen together. This primary objective of a brotherhood and the fact that they lived and worked together in places close to their work spot in accommodations known as the lodges was the original idea of formation of a lodge. Charity, which followed the concept of brotherhood, was to render aid to indigent brethren and their widows and not to the community at large. So charity to them necessarily began at home. Remember, my brethren, even today, a Freemason's charity begins at home first. Charity does not mean only doling out money to the needy, but to extend comfort and support to every brother in time of need or support, every kind word spoken, every kind gesture made, like our brother Raja moved away from our region Grand Master not to transmit his cough to him, and every kind gesture made, a smile offered, or even a shoulder lent to cry on is charity. So these guilds and lodges were so well established in